let's talk Manifold. So I just got 2 emails in the last week here about this, and this is where I'm not picking or choosing which is better per se. Let me explain that a little bit better here. So you guys know I've done it all. I've actually had a JDL manifold. Let me say this, I've never had a Chinese manifold when it came to exhaust manifolds. We're not talking about intake here, and we can actually do that in this video too. So what are the benefits of each manifold I've had? What are the downsides of them? So on and so forth. So I'm gonna try and include pictures of this too. So the first manifold that I had in this car was a JDL single gate manifold, which was here. It was non-twin scroll, so it was open T4 flange, and it was horrible. It was a great built manifold, but didn't hold boost to save its life. It had a single gate with open scroll, and the way that the gate position was, it just wouldn't hold boost at all. I mean, it literally creaked. It creaked more than a pedophile down the street from you. It is horrible. Like, it was just bad. I mean, no matter what I did on pump gas, it wanted to hit like 23 PSI with 11 PSI spring in it. Like, it just creeped. And that's with an old S366 turbo on it too, which, you know, it's not even the best turbo on earth. It doesn't make that much boost. So it's like, man, that's bad. And it made me honestly not enjoy the car for a very long time. I didn't really start enjoying the car until after I got rid of that. And then I got an S23 manifold for this car, which is this here. And that made me fall in love with the car again, because I never really got to enjoy the car until I actually got it redone. I had a PHR manifold on it, and then got an R154 transmission because I had a W58. Finally could beat on the car. I could go first, second, third, and just romp on it. And I'm like, this is what it's supposed to be like. And then the T56 came along, and I could really beat on it. Then I was able to up boost because of that, because I could hold more power. And the manifold did great. It was a twin gate, twin scroll manifold, had dual 44 millimeter precision wastegates with a BorgWarner S369 SXE. And I honestly love the car. It was a bone stock engine, and I love this car on that setup. Now, let me go back to JDL here. Again, the JDL sucked for multiple ways. One, this is one of the most important things when looking at manifolds, especially with the GT, is install. So it's one of the biggest things I look at is how hard is it to get these nuts on? Not the top, the bottom. So if you guys know, if you ever worked with the GTE, unlike the GE head, all the nuts and studs are underneath the runners. Now people were like, well, that's dumb, that's crazy, why Toyota to do that? Well, from the factory, these had like this little manifold they had put on like a cast piece that you could get directly to it. They didn't have these big curvy runners going down over it. It was never an issue. It was never designed to be this way. So I don't blame Toyota, because they never designed it to do this. They never designed to have these big curvy runners. Now, that being said, with the GE, they're in between each runner. So it's a lot easier to get those on and off. So I've always been kind of jealous now. You know, I went GTE years ago just for the fact that that was what you did. Like, when I bought this engine in 2013, VVTi was still kind of taboo. There's people doing it. I remember Jose saying about it, and I think I see a few other cars at the time, but it was still like, there's no need for it. A couple years later, of course, that changed, so I did buy VVTi for that. Now, that being said, you can get a VVTi head for these. But back to the manifolds here. When I had the JDL, I couldn't literally, even out with the engine on a stand, I could barely get the manifold on and off. Like, I had to have it kind of kinked up. You put the stud and nut on, this little piece, it just keeps spinning on. It was miserable. The minute I got an S23, it was tubular, but I could get to almost all of them except for 2 nuts with a socket. Like, I could actually get a socket. They literally took the runners and bent them around to not only make the car, you know, not have creep issues and stuff, but they also moved the runners around so you could get to the nuts. I was like, oh my God, this is life-changing. That manifold did great. It held boost. I had 11 PSI springs in it, and when we put it on the dyno with twin gates and that big S369, which is a 69 73 millimeter turbo, I had no creep. Like, we literally, he's like, what's just your gate pressure to get like a baseline of where this is at? It literally didn't creep at all. It had like 11.5 PSI. Now there's some other stuff with that too. If you have a really efficient turbo, you will get some creep. It's not really creep, it's just the efficiency of the turbo is just crazy. So kind of have that problem with this because the turbo is pretty efficient. But back to the S23, loved it. The only reason I switched out is Powerhouse Racing came out with this new version here, which is their VQ or their, I think it's I'm going to put it up here with the pictures and stuff with it when I first got it mounted up with the proper name, because I'm misspeaking right now, or misspoken. But this is a long runner style that comes with 3, 2 to 1 coming up into the collector. It's supposed to give you that iconic 2JZ sound, but give you better spool than say the longer runner manifold. So it's supposed to give you the best of both worlds. Also makes everything a little more compact, a little bit easier to work on. Again, I'm able to get down to those bottom nuts and bolts pretty easily. Now it's still not perfect. It's not like a cast manifold where you can get direct to it. It is what it is. But these sound better, they hold pressure well, and they're reliable. I don't have problems with them, they don't crack. Although I did crack my S23, because someone's gonna bring that up. I think at the time they said only myself and Rad Dan had ever broken one of their manifolds, and if you guys ever watch my old videos, I don't have no idea how this engine ever blew up, because I did more anti-lag than anyone else out there, beat the dog snot out of it. And I had one of the early S23s where the one runner or the one gate really was held out far and had no bracing. Well, of course, with that hanging out there so far with all that weight and it moving around, bang, 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 it started to snap off. Sent it back to them. They warranty it, 100% lifetime guarantee if you're an original buyer. They warranted it, braced it up, sent it back, and paid for shipping. I made sure that was crystal clear, that they took, let me take that back. Make sure it's crystal clear that they say like, hey, we cover it all. Like, it's not you like, all right, we warrant you, but now you got to get it back to us. You got to do this. Like, they covered everything. Like, amazing, amazing, amazing for that fact. But they came out with this new manifold, want to give it a shot, and it's been great. Again, this has like 16 PSI springs, and I think it creeped to 17. And I mean creep, it 1 PSI. And again, that was an efficiency thing, and I don't even think it's really creeping. It literally holds pressure perfectly. It's quite amazing. That's a 76, 75 turbo, and I have twin 44 millimeter go fast bits wastegates on this. You can see the one there getting a little hot from me driving it so much. No cracks, no problems. You can see in there it fits with AC. The only thing I wish I would have done is when I put this gate on, or this dump tube, I wish I would have moved it over a little bit more. You can see that it's a little bit closer to the body than I would like, and that's my fault. It literally is designed to be twisted over more, but I didn't because I'm stupid, and I don't feel like messing with it now. People keep asking, what do you think of this versus that car? Which we're going to get over that one. I'm doing these manifolds first, then we'll get over that car because I had 2 different manifolds on that one. This has been great. No cracks, no problems. Holding the pressure. If you want my personal opinion, S23 versus this, I guess the quick spooling version, S23 sounded better. It's just that equal length, and you ask anyone, that's just nature of the beast. It's just, they sound, that's what gives even like an R32, any car that has these long, super long runners, like they're even new and latest and greatest equal length S23, it just gives it that unique, amazing sound. Like, this sounds good, but my S23 was even crazier. Like, when we were sitting there with my buddy Tony, I got him converted from a Goretti manifold. It was just like night and day difference. Like, it is that much better. But I love the manifolds. They're easy to install. These are twin gates, and this is it. This is all you'll ever need when it comes to a manifold. This can go up to the biggest turbo, to the smallest turbo. This is all you'll ever need if you're looking for a one and done and never worry about it again. Now that brings me over to the auto car. Now, this car has had 2 manifolds on it now, while that one's had 3. We had the JDL single gate, we had the S23, and I also had the QR, the quick spool one that's on that now. This car had the cast manifold from Powerhouse Racing, and now has an RTEC manifold on the car. So the original one I had was their Street Torque kit, which is, at the end of the day, it's just like all the other, except they do port it out and do some other things. So I'm not, this again, not downplaying anything Powerhouse Racing does, but it is a Chinese cast manifold that they machine, make it better, they port everything out and stuff, but it's a cast generic manifold. But it worked. I had no boost creep issues with that either. I ran a 62, 66 turbo, and it was great. The biggest thing I say about that is 2 things. The best pros and cons with it is the easiest to install, easiest to work on, period. No other manifold's easier to work on. I don't care what anyone says. To run a drain line, you can run it straight down, super easy. To get to all the nuts and bolts, super easy. To access the turbo, downpipe, anything underneath the engine there, it freed up everything because you have no runners in the way. It just comes directly off, bolts to the turbo, you're done. It just couldn't be any easier than that. The only thing I could say can make it easier if it was V-banded. That would be it, and even then that has its own quirks in itself. But it really was the easiest because T4, bolt on, bolt off, done. It works, perfect. Biggest downside is, it's a short runner cast manifold, so it sounded, in my opinion, horrible. It sounded like a stock twin car, which is exactly what you don't want on a big single turbo 2JZ. It kills that sound. So if you want everything else great except for the sound, I recommend that, because literally any car that's making 800 horsepower, I think that's like the best manifold because it's just easy to work on. It won't break, it won't crack, it won't move, you won't have problems. It's simple, you only have 1 gate. I think it's like the go-to. It's like 400 bucks for them. Like, it's just hard to beat that. It comes with the adapters. It comes with everything for the wastegate to hook up. It's super simple. Now I decided to go away from that and try this. This is an R-Tech stainless steel cast manifold with a single gate, and it's all V-band. You can see the turbo's V-band and it's V-band down there. Now I did have to modify this one with one of the earlier prototypes, but the newer ones you don't have to do it. It literally bolts right up to a Turbo Smart 50mm gate. This is a Go Fast Bits 50mm I have on there, but the ones that they do, the flange and stuff, is designed for the Turbo Smart, just for the head design and everything. Now, this definitely made the car sound much better. There's longer runners. They're able to get the material a lot thinner, so it gives it that raspiness, because when you go too thick on material, that kills the sound. You want it to resonate. You want that. When you have thick metal in there, it kills the resonation. Okay? That's why like TI sounds amazing. This is all V-banded, and this can fit up to like a GT45 turbo. Now, this is a H-cover 6870 that's on the car with a single 50mm gate and a 13 PSI spring. It holds 13 PSI to redline with one single gate. Now, I've talked to other guys. You know, they've been asking me like, you know, can you go to a bigger turbo would hold it? I don't know, but this is a 1100 horsepower turbo right here. I mean, that's crazy in itself. That's 1100 horsepower, actually. 1100 or 1050, I forget. This is the older Gen 2 series. That there's a new Gen R's out now. But I think it's either 1050 or 1100, but 1000 horsepower plus turbo, and it's able to be bleeding off all that power right out that one gate, which is impressive. Because this is what I try to remind people. The bigger the turbo, the more you have to bleed off, right? It's creating more pressure. Your wastegate literally is designed to bleed that off. And the way the runners and everything are designed, it literally, this runner here, this is like 73mm inside here, this tubing, and then it necks down to the 50mm. So it's able to force all that air over and then neck it down to the small spot. So it gives it all that volume to get rid of. Works out really well in the end, and just a great manifold. Now, the downside of this, I would say, is you can't get it as a turbo kit right now. That I love. I can call Powerhouse Racing, come with intercore piping. Everything's ready to go. Boom, put it on, good to go. This also sounds great, but it doesn't sound like those true tubular manifolds. It just doesn't give that same sound. It sounds good, but it's not the same. Biggest benefit here is it's a single gate. One less thing you got to buy, one less thing you got to deal with. I really like that. I've always been big on that. I'd even like to try out eventually. I'd like to work with PHR and try a straight gate on that car. Get rid of the twin gates, get a straight gate, or one 50mm gate on that, get two runners coming off to one gate. I just like the idea of one wastegate over dual wastegates. Just personal thing. It's just always been in my head. I would like to get to that. That's just preference. The other thing with this is it's pretty easy to get the drain. It could be a little bit better, just the way the runners come out. I can't really get the, you guys can see there. It could come down a little bit straighter, but it just makes it very hard to get it go straight down. I had to neck it out a little bit. Nothing crazy there. It's very easy to install again. They notched everything out so you can get the nuts and everything on. So there's no problems. I have had no leaks. Uses factory gasket. There's no modifications you need to make to this manifold to bolt everything up. And the fact that it is like 321 stainless, I believe. Again, I'll change that if I'm incorrect. It doesn't ever rust. So some of the older stuff would, and look at the colors it's changing. See the blues and stuff, and I'm trying to block the light there. See that? Love the color change. I love that about it. Like it works very well. It's also cheaper. I think this manifold's like $1,400 list. So it's about half the price of other the big name manifolds. They're about $1,000 cheaper. But it's a give and take of what you want. It's not gonna have that iconic sound, and you are still limited on some of the sizes. It can go to the pretty big boys, but it can't go to some of the massive, crazy pro mod stuff like that manifold can. So it's, again, one of the little gives and takes there, depending what your power goals are and what you're looking for. Now someone's gonna ask, which one do you prefer, Ryan? And I'll be honest, I like both of them. Like I said, I like the single gate, but I don't like the sound as much as I do that one. So it's kind of like in between here where I can't decide what I like. Both companies are great. This is me just being honest. I really, bottom of my heart, can't pick one or the other. I like it for this car because I'm trying to keep this one a little bit more simple than that car. That's kind of my test bed car more than this one is. This one has to run and drive a certain way versus that car can kind of have issues or this or that. And that's why I'm always messing with that one more than this. We just kind of turn the key and go. Now, eventually it's going to change when we go to the 8-speed here, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty darn close to just a perfect turnkey fun car. But that talks about exhaust manifolds. Let's talk intake manifolds and how ridiculous it is that all of us have these big intake manifolds and how unnecessary it is for 99% of it, including myself. Realistically, we're pushing the power curve way over to the right, which means higher up, you're making all the power, you're making more horsepower, but you're making way less torque, and you don't make it well. You just don't make it, doesn't put it down well. These look great, but if you're being 100% honest with yourself, your stock intake manifold on a GTE is just better in 99% of applications. Especially if you can get one, if you then modify it once you get to big power, you modify the top runner, go to a drive-by-wire like 82mm throttle, keeping the factory runners, everything else, it just works. It just 1000% works, guys. I won't knock these things because I do love the look. I like how easy it is to get to my injectors and stuff. It already has the ports in the bottom. And then the cost of these things are insanely low. Like this intake manifold from MCC is $600 with a fuel rail, everything bolted up, O-ringed. It came with every nut, bolt, everything to put it on. Haven't had an issue with a leak, nothing. It has been flawless for me, no problems. It even comes with an adapter for a drive-by-wire. It makes it super simple. And I personally think they're very easy to work on. You can get underneath everything up top's now easy. That's my personal opinion. I like it for the cleanliness. I think aesthetically it looks better, but you have to realize you are shifting the power over. Again, same thing on this car here, and I think this plenum is actually even bigger. So I have a billet SMS intake manifold on this car, and again, it really pushes the power to the right. So I got a big turbo, big cams, big intake manifold. You can see why I'm revving the crap out of the car, because that's where it's making all the power. It's pushed all the way to the right. This car in third gear makes full boost at around 5,200 RPM. If it was a stock intake manifold, a little bit smaller turbo, I'd probably make it around 45 to 4,700 RPM. It just would pick up that much better, but it wouldn't rev as high, it would tend to fall off. So you got to pick and choose where you want to put your power at, how are you using the power, what you need it for, so on and so forth. But if you have a stock GTE, one thing we're always fortunate with, we don't have to buy one of these. I just think aesthetically, they look amazing. Like, I love this billet look of this. Love the whole, I think it looks amazing in my opinion. I love stuff like that. But again, you have to decide what you're looking for, what your goals are, and to go from there. So that's just kind of giving a little explanation of what I prefer, what I like. It's all what you guys need or want. Really wanted to talk more on the exhaust manifold side, but I figured while I'm talking manifolds, I'd touch on the intake a little bit. Again, there's way more you can go into this. There's a lot of math. We're talking about, volumetric, the amount of volume you can get into the manifold, into the head, depending on the design of the head. Again, I'm not really using any of this stuff to its peak efficiency. I'm probably hurting myself in a lot of ways just for aesthetics or just other reasons in itself. Like, the head isn't fully ported because I wanted it to be a street car. You had to put a big plenum on it. There's also the point of, they talk about having, the stacks inside that stick out. Do they actually work? Do they create better flow? Do they actually hurt flow? I've watched videos on it, and it always seems to be a little bit wishy-washy. There's nothing definitive out there that tells me yes, it's better, no, it's not. They're like the trumpets, I'll call them those, but there's an actual word for it, and I'm not thinking of it right now. So there's just a couple things there. Yeah, I hope this kind of helps, but I wanted to talk on this a little bit. The car has been a ripper. I do have some problems right now. This car is falling off. I took some logs here. I'm trying to figure out why the car seems to fall off so much on the 2 to 3 shift. You can literally see I bang and then it picks back up real hard. And I'm watching old videos and I'm running slower now, or not slower, I'm still faster, but I'm only making 1 shift, and before I made 2 shifts and the car seemed to do better. It literally seemed to do better before. I don't know, it seems insane. Maybe I'm going insane, but it seems to literally do better before than it does now with the old setup. I don't know if I need to rev it out more or do something different, but it just seems like it needs a little bit more in it, personally, because something is falling off once we're getting higher rev range. Now, I know in second gear, it's not getting into full boost until 5,200, and unfortunately in second gear at the gearing right now, it's not seeing that to above that 60 mark, so my 6130 is getting messed up because I'm not seeing it low enough. If I had a VVTi head and a little bit better, tighter gearing, I could get it under that. The problem with that is then I'd be shifting a second time though to get to the 130 mark. So it's like, I'm trying to, play with it here to try and find to get the right gearing, the right setup for this thing. I still think the 410 gear is something I need to do, but I'm gonna wait till this winter to do it because obviously I'll have time then versus now. And I'd like to drop the whole subframe out of the rear of this and redo all of it. So just want to give you guys a little update here, kind of talk about manifolds and what makes one better than the other in my opinion. So now we've discussed it all. We've done exhaust and the intake manifolds. And everyone's question is going to be, which one should I buy? And that's generic. So it's all what you want, kind of like it went down. I still say, if you're going to go the simplest, easiest route, the PHR Street Tour kit that I originally had on that car, yes, you won't get the sound. But if you want to go single turbo, super simple to work on, you want the easiest, fastest route, go Street Torque. If you want to go the most baller, balls to the wall, which if you're a Supra owner, it's the PHR setup. I mean, it's just, that's it. Like, they are the gold standard for the big boy setup. So the VQ here, or the S23 is like, I would consider like the gold standard. And that being said, there's a ton of BP out in Ohio. I believe that's where he's at, does really good stuff. Obviously, Dana at Virtual Works. Those guys all make manifolds, but I always say that Powerhouse Racing is the best just for the fact that you buy it and it's all done. So like you get the intercore pipe, you get the intercooler itself, you get everything. They will do, it's a truly 100% bolted kit. Like you get a full exhaust. Like they're the only company for the Supra out there that you can truly buy everything. Like, hey guys, I want to buy all this stuff. And they go, okay, I'll bolt up. Like here's the other thing I want to tell people that most people don't realize this. They have a physical Mark IV Supra they use for mock-up. Like, I need to ask Sam or one of those guys over there, like, I need a picture of this thing. They have a physical Mark IV Supra that they have to do testing and parts on. And not like one that's like a customer car. Like, no, it just sits there. It's got tons of dust on it and it's been there for years and years and years and years, okay? So they can do all the markup. They can do all the mock-up, I should say. They can test all this stuff. No one has that. Like, unless it's like their personal Supra and they don't really want to damage it. That Supra is just there, not to be a running, driving car. It's just for mock-up. That's it. That's all it's for, which is just wild to me. Other guys have their personal Supras and stuff, but, you know, eventually they want to get them running. That car's never, I mean, I guess they could, just like anything, but it's never designed to be running. It's there just, its sole purpose in life is for mock-up of parts, which I think is cool. Again, the RTEC, I really do love. I really do think that is the great middle ground manifold. It doesn't give you all the sound, but it gives you great spool and great fitment. I really do think it's great, and it's V-band. They have different versions of it. They have a twin gate version of it that has a T4 on it too. That's a really nice one. I've personally not used it. And for me, if you're going to go that route, the twin gate one, again, I just go V-band. And the reason for that is you get to go to one gate. I really like the idea of one gate versus dual. I guess that would be my only, we'll call it a zonk. Haven't used twin gates, but I've also heard once you go to the bigger power, no matter how well flowing it is, actuating, bleeding off fast enough, the twin gate's just going to do it better. Now, I need more proof in the pudding, but to say that, I don't want to be like, to knock RTEC or knock anybody. I'm just giving from what I've read and seen. That's why I try to only give opinions on stuff I've physically done. Like, when people ask me, well, why don't you like this? What do you know? Like, it's not like a matter of opinion. I've literally done it. I've physically gone through that transmission, that motor, that turbo kit, so on and so forth. I've been fortunate now that I've done so many iterations of these cars that I've physically done it. Like, when people knock the R154, in my personal opinion, I really do think the R154 is a great transmission depending on what your goals are and what you want to do. It bolts up, it's OEM fit and finish. If you want 600 to 650 wheel horsepower, as long as you get a tripod version, which has the first gear and reverse, actually has synchros in it. What I mean by that, it's triple synchroed like a V160. Then it's great because you can go into those gears and it drives pretty normal. The problem that is come with the R154, it can only hold that power, and the T56 is so cheap. And if you already once you get all the parts, it's kind of like a no-brainer because to get the R154 is like over $3,000 now. Now it's a complete transmission at that point, but then you still need a drive shaft, so on and so forth. So after you start adding it up, the differences are there. It's still probably $2 to $3 grand difference, but actually might not even be that much. It might be $2 grand, $1,500 from a T56 because once you add a drive shaft, you still got to get a pretty nice clutch. So you add all these little things up you would have to get with any other swap. You go, oh, well, maybe the difference isn't that crazy. So that's the kind of stuff you got to weigh, but that's totally different there. I'm not going to go off that rant, but that's all I wanted to bring up today, guys. This is something I want to talk about. I keep getting asked why I have this set up on this car versus that, why I went to this manifold versus S23. I guess something I could touch on. Again, this is a new manifold they want to test out. I work with Powerhouse Racing. I have a very good relationship with Brian, Sam, Lance. Everyone over there is very kind to me. So wanted to test it out. It's been phenomenal. It hasn't cracked. It hasn't changed. It hasn't nothing. I love everything about it. And again, I don't know what changed, but like I said, my last setup, I swear this flange had to be a different material because it hasn't like rusted. Again, 304 stainless doesn't have as much nickel in it as say 321, okay? or 316, which is like a medical grade stainless steel. There's different types. So the more nickel you have it, the more resistant it is from oxidation and from actually corrosion, right? So that's why I use a lot, something with more nickel in it than you would use anything that has to do with marine. So a lot of marine stuff is 316, or they use a lot of Inconel over there. So that's just stuff that you can get into, where titanium too is hyper resistant to corrosion. But this stuff, I don't know what happened, but the color for one has really popped on this setup. And then this flange didn't discolor at all. The runners never did, but like this, the color's beautiful. That's why I don't want to, I love the whole blacked out setup, and I could easily got this all coated. But my God, I just love, like, plus I don't have to worry about nicking it or damaging it. Like I can hit a wrench against it, which I do like that. It's kind of the reason I like powder coat over paint, just because powder is much harder. I know it doesn't look as glossy, or it doesn't have as smooth of a finish, but I can drop a wrench against it, I can do stuff, and it's not going to chip the paint off. I love powder coat. So I'm going to digress now, guys. I hope this helps. If you guys have questions, please let me down below. I'm going to try and do a lot better of this answering back to you guys. If there's some other comparison you would like to know in another video, or I can do a quick snip that I can put on YouTube or Instagram, please let me know. Guys, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.